Hello everybody, it's Doug07. Today we are playing Mardu Strict Proctor List. This is a very cheap magic card that doesn't see any play in Modern but has a very good potential and is very unexplored. This card says whenever a permanent entering the battlefield causes a trigger ability to trigger, counter that ability unless its controller pays 2. So we will try to use this card to gain advantage in our deck and to prevent opponents from getting the uh, ATB abilities, of course. So, how we are doing this? Our best payoff with Strict Proctor on the field is definitely Croxa. This is a very powerful creature in modern, best one with escape, and it is okay creature to play from your hand for 2 mana. Get your opponent to discard a card or do 3 damage to them. But also, if we have a Strict Proctor on the field, we have multiple options with Croxa. We can, when it enters the battlefield, two abilities trigger, so we can choose which ability we will pay mana for and which we won't. So, in that case, if we have 2 spare mana, we can pay ability for its discard ability to resolve and its escape ability to not resolve. So it will stay on the field for just 2 mana. And if you want to pay additional 2 mana for opponent to discard a card, it's good. If not, you still get a 6/6 Croxa for 2 mana, which is great. Also, our other payoff in this deck is a land. It is a Lotus Field. A Lotus Field is a land that gives you 3 mana when tapped, and the only problem is when it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice 2 lands. But when you have Strict Proctor on the field, that way you just don't pay mana for this ability, and you just get it similar to how Blood Sun works, of course. So when your turn 3 comes, you can play Strict Proctor and just play Lotus Field, and your opponent doesn't have a window to respond to the Strict Proctor's triggered ability on Lotus trigger. So even if they kill a Strict Proctor in response, your Lotus Field will stay on the field without you having to sack additional lands. This land is not like really important in this build. Like Blood Sun build depends on it because they have very large mana curve, but it's obviously great when you resolve it and you get to play your Fury or Troll turn earlier. Okay, so this is deck very dependent of this card Strict Proctor, so we are playing some of the ways to bring it back from the graveyard because often it will die to Bolt, of course. So we have 4 Unearths in our deck and 2 Nahiri the Unforgiving, which are very good ways to save our Strict Proctor and get it back when we need it later in the game to trigger abilities from Croxa, Lotus, or Troll. Okay, so we'll come to Troll. What is this creature? This creature is a 5 mana 8/8 Trample Haste, which is actually pretty decent, but problem is when it enters the target, when it enters the battlefield, it gives your opponent 3/0/1 white gold creature tokens, which is definitely hilarious. And your opponent can choose on beginning of the combat phase to sacrifice one of those ghosts or any other creature to tap a troll, but in that case you gain 3 life and you draw a card, so it's a win-win actually. So this card has performed really good, but I don't think you want more than 2 of them in any deck. It's just a 5 mana card, and we don't get that easily to 5 mana unless, of course, we get Lotus Field early. So it is very fun creature, and it won me a pretty decent amount of games, especially against some of the players using Elesh Norn, for example. So Elesh Norn stops this ability from opponent from you getting any ATB, so they don't get the goats, and it's immediately 8/8 Trample Haste. It's a very difficult creature for that deck to deal with. They need, of course, they need to have a response in a turn or two, or they will die from this creature. Okay, so um, a lot of the games get really grindy, and in those games, this Nahiri, Fury, and Troll, also Kroxa, of course, definitely mean a lot. Okay, I've chosen to play Doughty Voidwalker in the main because it's a graveyard hate and graveyard decks are very common. Right now, it's also deck playing 4 Unearths, and Doughty is always decent Unearth target. Also, my Crashing Footfalls matchup was kind of bad, so I was looking for painless solutions for to deal with that too, and I was able to win a few times thanks to having 3 Giant Magistrate on the sideboard and Engineered Explosives. I found out while I was playing that Rhinos is probably the worst matchup for this deck, and but the deck has a lot of good matchups. So I think Hammer Time was pretty favorable for me. Using the Strict Proctor, they have to pay 2 mana to use Sigarda Aid, which really works well. It can really put them off being very slow. And when Sigarda Aid doesn't work, they have to work. They have to build mana, and then you get some responses. In the meantime, you can use your Skelementals, Furies, Croxas, Ending, Bolt to get rid of their hand or creatures, whatever. So it often works out very well if you can jam Strict Proctor on the play. And it will be hard for them to deal with because they don't play really removal. They have few removal on the side, but yeah, they will mostly just play slower and build mana, which then works in your favor, and the matchup usually becomes good. Okay, so creativity is a deck playing a huge number of 80-bit abilities. So Strict Proctor is good there. They have to pay 2 mana to get token from Dwarven Mine. They have to pay mana to get abilities from Archon. So it will also slow them down. And against this deck, they will play a different game. They will play much slower controlling game. And that is the reason why I still have Orvars on the sideboard because they will really try to go and play controlling game, and they will never really be in situation to go for the early creativity. Okay, so that is it. Other than that, we will say that it has a favorable four color omelette matchup. This deck also has a favorable, very good, I would say, Rakdos scam matchup. Okay, we also have ways to scam Fury in, which we can often use in our favor. So when you have strict Proctor on the field, you can pitch cast the Fury, and when Fury enters the battlefield, it triggers two abilities: the Evoke ability and the Damage ability. So you pay mana for the Damage ability to get damage wherever you want it, and you just don't pay mana for Evoke ability, and that way you have scammed the Fury, and Fury stays on the field, which can be very good often. Yeah, so. Um, a lot of ways to abuse this strict proctor ability in this deck. There is a Clackbridge Troll, which enters the battlefield as a 8/8 trample haste without any downsides when you have strict proctor, or if opponent has a white leyline or Eleshnor, which is a very common card being played right now. Troll also doesn't give opponent anything, and it enters the battlefield with haste and no downside. So that is it. So this is deck trying to get Kroxa into play early and win with Kroxa often. And other than that, it's also trying to win on using Lightning Skelemental, reanimating it with Unearth, Nahiri multiple times, and just getting rid of your opponent's hand. And this Kroxa and Skelemental can disrupt opponent's hand very well. Also, Unearth helps there too. Other than that, we have Aragawan to apply more early pressure and ramp us into these other more expensive cards, like turn 1 Ragavan Connect, and turn 2 you can play a Strict Proctor and immediately play Lotus Field, which means you will have 5 mana on turn 3. Can definitely be a very good start. Okay, so on the sideboard, we have Fulminator Mages because it's a very good unearthed target, and when you need it from sideboard. It's very effective, just destroying opponent's lands and then unearth it back, or even using Nahiri to bring it back. We have some Artificate in Kolgan's Command, additional removal in Terminates, and as I said, bad matchup with Rhinos and some other Cascade decks forced me to play 3 Janet Magistrate and Engineered Explosives. Okay, that is it. Deck is extremely fun. I had great laugh playing this deck. So multiple times opponent tried to Leyland Binding me on turn 2 to kill Strict Proctor, but the ability wouldn't binding wouldn't do anything because Proctor demands paying 2 mana, and this happened multiple times with a lot of permanents. Opponents using furies, bindings to kill my stuff, but it never worked, of course, or they used it badly, and it was very fun playing this and just jamming Clackbridge Troll, for example, on turn 4 with using Lotus Field. So going turn 3, Strict Proctor into Lotus Field, untap, play Clackbridge Troll, get 8/8 Trample Haster without any downsides. It was hilarious at the moment, and it is a very good clock. This creature often just attacks 2 times and you're dead and finish it with 1 bolt. So it can be very effective. So and a lot of decks not playing Solitude just have a real hard time in killing this. Fatal Push doesn't kill it, Unholy Heat doesn't kill it, 2 Lightning Bolts doesn't kill it. So you need Heat plus Bolts or 2 Furies or Furies, Scam Fury to kill it. It's a pretty hard creature to kill, definitely. Okay, so um, that is it. I had some. I'm now finished with playing this list for the moment. I will take a break from it and then come back to it and try to be with some new ideas. I will definitely plan to test a few Sundial of the Infinites in this deck as additional enablers for Troll Furies, additional way to scam Fury in after resolving damage, to scam Croxa also into the play, Lotus Fields, all this stuff. Also, Nahiri's tokens, and yeah. So that is it. And we will now go through the gameplay, watch some games, and I hope you enjoyed. So let me see. I played 8 or 9 leagues with this deck, and most of the leagues ended up 3-2. 2 leagues ended up 2-3, and 1 league ended up as a 4-1. Okay, so we will see now match 1. In the match 1, I kept mediocre hand. I had a turn 1 Ragavan, bolt for my opponent's hand, so it was decent. I can't really complain too much. My opponent goes for the Inquisition, gets rid of my Skelemental. I decide to go for the Ragavan, try to connect, but my opponent has the push, so no luck there. And they were on Junt, which means I'm preparing for a longer game, which is okay. My opponent just played Tarmogoyf, which wasn't great news for me, but I was trying to hoping to resolve my Fury, or this Clackbridge Troll would be pretty decent in this situation. It's bigger than a Goyf, so they go for an Inquisition. I only have a Bolt in my hand. They can discard, so I use it in response. They use Totsis to really, so you can see this Troll is no joke because opponent is uh, using Totsis to discard a Troll instead of Fury, which is, yeah, feels good. And my opponent goes for another attack with Goyf, putting me on 4 life, and plays another Goyf, which means that they have lethal for next turn, and that was loss in game 1 against Junt. Okay, so usually Croxa is very good in this matchup. I didn't see it in this match 1, but usually Croxa, it's very hard to for Junt to deal with. They have to play multiple Graveyard Hate pieces, but they don't really have it, so it's not rare that they lose to it. And my opponent started with Inquisition, discarding my Strix Proctor, and I got Croxa, so I start with that. Croxa is definitely a good draw here. So basically, I'm just hoping to get those lands into the cards into the graveyard, get my lands on the field, and just start replaying my Crocs. I should have probably played Doughty last turn because my opponent was anyway just holding mana for Urza Saga token. So I correct my mistake from last turn and played Doughty now, which was good decision now because opponent again decided to go for the construct. So at least I played it now, and I had ending plus bolt here to get rid of both constructs, which was important, I would say. And I didn't have a solution for opponent's Ragavan for one turn, but this was fine. They were just on. Um, they were not applying other pressure, so it was okay. I had to terminate still, plus Fury, no mana to cast Skelemental. Unfortunately, this situation it would be good. So they again go for the Ragavan, and I use one of my terminates, hoping to get that land finally to be able to cast the Skelemental. They proceed with the Mishra's Bubble to draw another card, see the land on my top, and finally I can cast this Skelemental. I successfully deal damage to opponents, so they're forced to discard 2. They get rid of the Swamp and the Alpine Moon. Go for another Ragavan. Bolt me with my bolt, put me on 6 life, so it was a close game. Again, I went for Skelemental. My opponent discarded other Alpine Moon and the Tireless Tracker. They boarded Alpine Moons for my Lotus Blooms, but here I top decked Colagan's Command to finish off my opponent. This is this type of deck that is mostly just trying to find that bolt, Skelemental, Unearth to finish the game in a lot of situations, and successfully done it this time. Okay, so that was it. That was a game 2 against Junt. So let's see. I think it was game 2. Let's check out the game 3. Okay, again, top deck's Ragavan here. It was okay, but chances of Ragavan surviving are not too large against Junt, but still I decide to play it on turn 1. Of course, they could always have a brand, but yeah, I kind of decide to go for it anyway. So I just play my fetch, hold the bolt to kill this Ragavan. When they go to combat, I kill it, then untap, and now I'm able to play my Nahiri. They just replay their Shadow Spear, which I didn't really care for at the moment. So I had 2 Croxus in my hand and Nahiri as a way to fill my graveyard with this Croxus to just make it easier for me to cast them. So I just went for it. I went for the Nahiri. I had to pay 2 life there to cast it for 3 mana, then plus it, discard one of my Croxus, get Skelemental in hand, which is very good for the play for the next turn, and also, but I'm also very close to casting Croxa from the graveyard, which is, as I already said, very good tactics in this matchup. My opponent gets Bolt from top of my deck and uses my and their Bolt to finish off my Nahiri, but now I was able to, with getting a fourth land meant I'm able to cast the Kroxa. The Kroxa stops the Ragavan attacks very efficiently, also makes them discard the card. Next attack I can use both Skelemental and Kroxa to completely destroy my opponent's hand. So I went for it, of course. I went for Skelemental, attack with both creatures. My opponent had the bolt to get rid of Skelemental, and they had to discard other card for the Crocs ability, and they let damage through, so they ended up on 12 life with just Tireless Tracker. On the field, of course, they still had a Shadow Spear, and I'm on 6 life, so it's it's not nothing, but I had Dati here, I have Croxa, I have the Lightning Skelemental, so my opponent goes for to kill my Croxa, but I just replay it from my graveyard to deal final 3 damage, and that was it. So when Croxa enters the battlefield, it deals 3 damage if you can't discard a non-land card. And that was a game one, match 1 against Junt. So let's go to the match 2. As I said, often these matches using this deck were very, very fun and even funny at the times, especially to me playing it. So I had a bit slower hand this time, just a Skelemental and a Nahiri for turn 3. So I started with the Skelementals. It's not uncommon for opponents to tap out on turn 3, so Skelemental often just can connect. I tried to go for Nahiri on turn 4. They have Beers. They're playing some blue-red control deck. And of course, again, Kroxa is very good in this matchup. And already my opponent decides to go for the draw 2 in response to the Archmage Charm. So resolve my Dati, resolve my Kroxa, get 2 more lands in the graveyard. So this means I'm able to cast Kroxa from the graveyard next turn. So you can really see just how Kroxa can be good in this deck, even without Strict Proctor, of course. So it's just a good card, a good, very playable card. But when you get it turn earlier with Strict Proctor, it's just insane. So and it wins games. In this situation, my opponent used Counterspell to get rid of my Kroxa, but and they got insane amount of card advantage. They went just expressive iteration into See the Truth here, just getting. Uh, that's 6 cards, so 3 cards from City Truth and seeing 3 cards from the iteration. It's really huge, huge card advantage, but still, and they got another iteration. Still, it wasn't enough to stop Croxa, so I think Croxa is just very well positioned right now, and I was in no hurry to play anything. So opponent again had the Fire Ice against Fire Ice is very good against Skelemental, very good way preventing him from doing anything. So I decided to just go for the Fury here, and I think it resolved. I had 5 cards in the graveyard, which means I can 6 now. Sorry, this means I can again go for the Croxa next turn, draw into another Fury, and my opponent finds the subtlety, unfortunately. And but I decided to put it on top. Still, I just like it staying in the graveyard, threatening opponent. And ideally, my opponent played some Teferi Planeswalker. I don't know if I ever saw this one before, but I was able to kill both the token it made and Planeswalker itself. So Fury was very good here for me. Again, opponent get rid of my Fury, and I play Kroxa first. Okay. Next turn, I'm able to resolve. I had kind of with using my Kroxa abilities and getting 2 for 1 each time with it. I leveled up with the card count with my opponent, so I was able to grind the opponent out using Croxa, and of course, as a control deck, opponent plays more lands than me, so that was also um, that was also relevant. So this turn, my Skelemental got countered and my Fury tapped. No luck there. My opponent decides to let the damage through, and I decide to get rid of the Fable itself, not a token. And next turn, I untap. My opponent untaps and concedes, despite not being actually dead, but in a very bad spot. So that was it. That was game one in the match two. Let's see the game two. So, as I already said, the Croxa just definitely works very well in these control matchups. It will easily crush any control, and it will control will definitely have a hard time dealing with this. Maybe it's easier for of course, for the blue white control, because they have rest in peace, they have solitudes and prismatic cleansings, but in other controlish decks or mid-range decks will definitely have problems. So this is definitely blue red, and control or Meritide or Jund 4-color Omnite piles will definitely struggle dealing with Strict Proctor, Croxa, Disc Elementals, Nahiris, and stuff like that. Okay, so here is Croxa again. This time a Blood Moon hits the field. I got the Lightning Elemental here to discard the last 2 cards from opponent's hand, putting us in... Okay, I misplayed here. It wasn't a really misplay. I decided to use Croxa at this turn because my opponent had 0 cards in hand, and 3 damage with Croxa was guaranteed. So I was thinking like going Croxa this turn, next turn Unearth on Skelemental for lethal. But my own opponent ended up top decking Soul Guide Lantern, which was probably like the best possible top deck, and this meant I cycled my unearth, so they decided to sacrifice Soul Guy to draw a card. I find my Ragan here, try to deal damage, but didn't go through. They dig some more. It was really a dead race. Both players not finding what they need for a lot of turns, but here is them trying to dig more. So I thought about Blood Moon solutions for this deck, but I figured out I really don't need it. I've just in most situations I'm just able to go for. I play 2 basic swamps, so in most situations I'm able to go for a single swamp or a double swamp early and completely kind of in that way deal with Blood Moon, and I have successfully done this multiple times. In this exact situation, I lost the game, but I had the winning line. I just missed it. I had an option to go for Honor there on Skelemental and then just play next turn Croxa from my hand, which would be a lethal damage. But I played. I decided to play it the other way and lost the game because of it. So let's go to. Was forced to go to the game 3 to try to win this. In the game 3, had a decent hand, but with it's a risky keep with just 1 land. Other land is Lotus Field, which I can't really play without 2 lands on the field, because uh, it's needed to sacrifice 2 lands when it enters. So you have to have 2 other lands to sacrifice it on the ATB. My opponent goes for another removal. So I just decided to kill their snaps and use my unearth to force them to use their Soul Guide Lantern. So I can now gem my Croxa, put it into the graveyard and have it stay there, just threatening to be replayed. Which is definitely a bit easier when you have also Lotus Field that puts 2 lands into your graveyard and fills the graveyard well for Crocs. Actually, so small, kind of small synergy there. Okay, I find my Strict Proctor. So I'm able to play my Croxa from the hand next turn if my opponent doesn't find a solution for Proctor. I didn't want to block with Proctor in this situation because um, they could then maybe kill my Croxa. So in this way I have 2 spare mana, so I'm able to pay mana for the ability for the opponent to discard the card. So they were forced to discard Hazard, but Croxa stayed on the field because I didn't pay the escape ability. So it was a pretty good situation for me. Next turn I got my Skelemental. Unfortunately, opponents had ice, but I still had a very good attack here thanks to Croxa again. Croxa just performing incredibly well here, putting my opponent on 9 life. It wasn't over still. Opponent had plenty of gas on their side, so they got attacking with the double shaman, and they had a solution this turn for Croxa. So they went for a subtlety. They went for subtlety, copy the subtlety, and that way use it as blocker for Croxa. But they are on 5 life, so it's not nothing. I decided to pitch cast my Fury, ditching the second Croxa from the hand. So this way I pay for 2 mana for Fury's damage ability, but don't pay mana for its evoke ability. So Fury is scammed for 0 mana on the field, and opponent plays their own Fury, but they don't have 2 mana. They maybe could have played it post combat, let their shaman die and then play Fury, but they mis-sequenced that and maybe forgot about Proctor ability. So that was it. They conceded, and yeah, that next turn would definitely be a hard block, and they wouldn't have a very good blocks. So um, they decided to concede this situation. That was it. Okay, we can now go to the match 3. Match 3, mulliganing 1 lander to keep a land with 2 Skelementals, playing against Affinity. Okay, I got my Ragavan connecting this turn, which means I can go for the Skelemental next turn, which is good. Opponent goes for double Frogmite, Gingerbrute Companion, staying with just 1 card in hand. I play my Lotus Field, don't have Proctor here, so I'm forced to sack 2 lands, just play it as played like without cheating it in. Attack my opponent with Ragavan, but it is not a winning situation, definitely. I have a small chance of them attacking with everything. Of course, they didn't do it, so I had a small chance of top decking the Bolt and going in with the Skelemental and bolting opponent's face to do the lethal damage, but then staying back with Gingerbrute means I can't do this, so that was it. Okay, so let's see, that was a quick loss, game 1 against Affinity, but I successfully won the next 2 matches. We'll see now how. Mostly you can do this using a Fury and Colgan's command and the Skelemental Croxa to get rid of the cards from opponent's hand. So I just used my Ragavan basically as a removal here, play my second land and prepare for next turn either killing Urza Saga or their creatures. Had multiple options here, but they had just 2 cards in hand, so it was very appealing to use this Elemental. I think it was a great decision because I discarded Thoughtcast and Urza Saga from my opponent's hand, which are 2 very, very good cards. So I used my Fury to kill Automaton, which was a big threat, and used Kroxa to discard the last card from opponent's hand, which was Metallic Rebuke. So my opponent was left with just with a low number of cards on the field, and I was now able to escape Kroxa from the field, which is basically game over. Kroxa will kill you in. Kroxa is a 2-turn clock, and I also have Fulminator to get rid of the opponent's Urza Saga, so my opponent concedes. Let's see the game 3. This deck can also be very effective in a lot of situations, so when I see my opponent having 2 cards in hand, I just use my Skelemental. And here it is again. Plan when you have a Fury in your deck and Strict Proctor is in, especially when you have also Unearthed. In most situations I just go for turn 2 Proctor. Then if they kill the Proctor, I can go for Unearthed and scam Fury in while paying 2 mana to resolve Fury's ability, but not the evoke ability, as you will see right now. So I resolved the damage ability to kill the companion, and the Fury stays in play, which is just so very good. And I still hold the Lightning Bolt when I go equip Nettlecyst. Actually, sorry, I didn't do it because I was planning on going for explosives next turn anyway. So I didn't really care much about opponent equipping this Nettlecyst. I just destroyed both of their creatures. And start attacking with the Fury. Also have Fulminator in case they play Urza Saga. I'll have Bolt, Maya Nerd, a lot of stuff there. So I played my Fulminator to be able to attack with it next turn, and my opponent really has to find something to survive. They go for the Frogmite equip, and I bolt Frogmite in response, and that was the game. Opponent concedes. So that was third match. That was third match from this league, and we can now go watch the fourth one. Okay, I had to mulligan that hand. Basically, I play a lot of lands in this deck, 23. That's because of the Lotus Blooms. What is it called? The Lotus Land. Because if you don't have a strict proctor, you just it can be played as a regular land. But sometimes if you have just one land plus a Lotus, it is no good. Of course. So I had 2 strict proctors here. It was a Murktide matchup, so you can see how that one works too. They also struggle dealing with Kroxa. I decided to go for the double swamp. Because a lot of these Murktide decks play main deck Blood Moon, and with double swamp I can play like most of my spells, even when you can't. I always have Ragavan to maybe gain that 1 white mana. And here you can see the clock bridge troll beatdown. Obviously very good. 2-turn clock. I have 2 stick proctors on the field, so my opponent doesn't get the goats. And it's just so very good. My opponent plays a Shredder, plays the General, a lot of creatures there, but it's definitely so hard to deal with this troll. It's so huge, and even Heath can kill it. And I go for a double attack here with both Skelemental and Troll. I decided to stay back with Proctors, maybe leaving them with the better options of blocking. They didn't need to block with the Ragavan, but Ragavan was also not very relevant. So maybe I should have gone with everything, but decided against it. So My opponent plays Murktide, and I have Fury in the hand. So actually, I really want for my strict proctors to die now. So this was a very good attack because I don't care if they block my strict proctor. I just want to play my Fury to kill their Ragavan. I already used strict proctors for everything I needed them. So in this situation, I just want to I don't want to pitch cast. I don't want to. I could pitch cast, of course, Fury and then pay 4 mana, but. To kill the opponent's Ragavan, but this way this Ragavan stayed in my hand. And next turn, opponent had a third turn clock, so they just went for it. And I had the Ragavan dash, so that was the game in first game that was finished. Okay, so let's go to the game 2 of this match 4. A very interesting hand. 2 Ragavans, 3 Stack Doctors. I decide to keep. Okay, we saw a troll last game winning the game easy using these strict proctors. Strict proctors can be very I'm very glad to see like proctor plus unearth in the starting hand. It means that a lot of crazy stuff will resolve this game. So I just went for proctor turn 2. I have another one if they kill it. I'm definitely resolving the lotus field next turn, so we'll see that too. But unfortunately, again, opponent resolves the blood moon, but I'm able to play around it and scam the fury in, paying 2 mana to kill the shredder, and the fury stays in play. This always feels so great. Opponent had I was able to play opponent shredder, but that wasn't even what I wanted. I just wanted to resolve my Kroxa. I got the treasure from Ragavan attack, so I got black mana there. Cast my Kroxa, and my Kroxa stays on the field. And imagine how hard it is for anyone to deal with this. So I win over Blood Moon. I win over Blood Moon, turn 3 Blood Moon on the play, and turn 2 Shredder, easily win over it. Fury, Kroxa on the field, crazy, pretty crazy game, and crazy win against Murktide. It was just I'm sorry I didn't. For this exact deck, very sorry I didn't do a live gameplay video because I was just laughing a lot while playing, and a lot of these situations were pretty funny when played in the live gameplay. So next time I take this deck for a spin again with some modifications. As I already said, I plan to use the Sundial next turn as another enabler for all this Croxa Lotus Field stuff. Sundial of the Infinite. And next time, I definitely am going to do the live gameplay video with this deck. Okay, so that were all the wins. We will see now one defeat. Sorry, not sure if it was the first or the last. We'll check this just a second. Okay, we can watch this. Okay, pretty decent hand actually. Have Ragavan, Proctor, Skelemental, 2 Unearths, Bolt, so pretty good. But as I said, this is the worst matchup for the deck. Definitely worst matchup. Not unwinnable. I've won it 2 times, but I think I lost 6 times. So pretty hard. Also, didn't have any good plays here really. So I think best was just attack with Ragavan, finish 1 Rhino with the Bolt, then unearth my Ragavan back and finish the second Rhino on the next turn. They go for another shardless. At least I kill the first 2 set of Rhinos. So I go for the Skelemental on my turn. If I had a land, I could have killed both Rhinos with a Bolt. but didn't have it, so my Skelemental just killed one of them. At least, as I said, I had a few more tries to survive this, but they also got the Fire Ice to I go for the block with the Proctor. It's obviously not a winning play. My opponent goes for the Outburst, and that is definitely the game. I mean, I can survive this turn, but I'm not winning this. Okay, so this is the Rhinos is the hardest matchup, and was really the hardest matchup in all games I played. And multiple times I had leagues where I lost two matches to Rhinos. I think two times, and I think definitely Rhinos is the reason why I wasn't able to trophy with this deck in 8 or 9 leagues I played with it. But it's a pretty decent deck. It has a mediocre power level on the low bottom, maybe of tier 2, but it's very fun, and its strength lies in um, it's just very good in certain metagames. So I just didn't have enough gas on this. Didn't have enough gas in this game. My opponent was stuck for a land on for one turn, but didn't help me anyway. I just draw into 4 Furies. I think 3 of them in a row, and I was stuck on 3 lands, which just felt terrible. So instead of swarming my opponent with Furies and winning this game, which is definitely one of the ways I can win this, I was stuck with 4 Furies in my hand, not being able to cast one. Felt really unfortunate. Felt really unfortunate, and my opponent again had triple crashing footfalls. So yeah, just pitch casting my Fury is definitely not a way to win here, but I got the Unearth, and they even got the Endurance to prevent this. If I resolve this, they would probably trade with the Rhino, so I would, and Shardless, so they would be left with just one Shardless on the field, but they had the Endurance to prevent this, so it was game over for me, and that was it. That was the entire league. Think my final thoughts about this deck. I think this is definitely unexplored. Also, a Sundial of the Infinite can be very good with this Strict Proctor synergy. Strict Proctor is definitely better because it's a creature. It's flying, it attacks, it blocks. It can be good with Unearth and Nahiri, and also maybe some other spells. But I definitely want to try Sundials for the next league. Definite flex slots for this list are these Doughty Voidwalkers in the main, and this one of Prismatic Ending. I think Doughties can be easily played on the sideboard too, and to gain and Prismatic Ending was not really necessary. Bolt was a lot more important in here as a finisher because we have just a lot of these cards that deal damage to face, and deck is really good at finishing the game if you can get opponent low enough. So Bolt is really important, and ending not so much. It is good, of course, but Fury and Bolt are definitely the main removal solutions for this deck. Okay, so we can definitely get rid of the Voidwalkers, put this on the sideboard, maybe even ending on the sideboard. So, like, maybe play 3 Nahiris. Nahiri was very good, pretty good for the deck. Play some, maybe few Sundials. Sundials can also be synergistic with Nahiri, leaving the Nahiri tokens in play. So that's another very nice synergy. I would like to use a few of these sundials, and also like option is also like playing 2 Doughties as a main board hate good unearthed target, just a kind of good stuff creature for this list. Additional hate for the lot of the decks. I can lose to Doughty. Um, so it is a decent option, but maybe 2 of them is good. Number 2 in the main, 2 in the side, something like that. And to be able to fit in a few of the sundials, Don't know how much yet. I didn't ever play with that card. Have to test it. So I'll decide on that next time I try this deck in the next video. Okay, so this is it for today. I hope you had a good time. Hope you liked the list. I hope you liked the gameplay. And goodbye. So if you want to help the channel, click like, click subscribe, and comment in the video. So that is it for this time. See you. Goodbye.